Joining me now is Stephen Burega of Angkor Gold. You're a gold company in Cambodia. Before we start, tell me your symbol and what exchange are you on?
We're ANK, and we're on the venture, and ANKOF on the over the counter in the States.
So Cambodia, what is it about Cambodia that you said there's an opportunity here? Because we haven't seen many North American companies really looking at Southeast Asia the way that they did maybe 15, 20 years ago. What was it about Cambodia that said, yeah, we want to go in there, we think there's a good opportunity?
I think Cambodia was one of those countries that got a little bit lost in the mix. I mean, they've got a really tragic history.
Yes.
And I think there's been a bit of a hangover associated to that. Mm-hmm. And as a result, there wasn't a lot of work being done in Cambodia. In 2007, 2008, when we arrived as a private company at the time, all the indications of exciting potential geology was there, and there were really no major players. Mm-hmm. So within our first 2 years, we identified our first copper porphyry. We identified significant potential epithermal gold targets, and from that point on, we've just been working very hard to understand what was otherwise a misunderstood geology in the country, in the northeastern quadrant of Cambodia.
And so you're getting positive results at this point because you're still there.
We certainly are. Over the years, we've gone from having over close to 2,000 square kilometers of licenses down to just under 1,000 now.
Mm-hmm. So it's still a massive area.
It's a massive area across 5 licenses, 4 of which currently are actually under partnership. So what we've done is we've taken an approach of project generation, for lack of a better term, and we do the initial work. We bring targets into some focus, and then we look for partners to come in and use their dollars moving forward to bring more knowledge towards each of these prospects.
So what's the initial response when you start talking to potential partners about, well, come to Cambodia, and what do you tell them that makes them eventually say, okay, we want to be a part of this?
Well, I think the geology speaks for itself. So that's the first and foremost. Well, no one's coming unless you've got a sniff of something exciting.
Yes.
Right? So we've got some really good results as a result, which gets people to the table. Mm-hmm. But I think that what keeps them at the table is the fact that Cambodia has grown so dramatically over the past 30 years since independence. They've structured their mining code wisely. They essentially looked at Western Australian mining code and adopted it. They looked at a taxation rate and made a wise choice and made it a flat 30% profit tax. They looked at neighbors and saw maybe where the pitfalls that they may have fallen into in Thailand or in Vietnam or in Laos, and tried to maneuver around and identify it early and trying to address those issues that could potentially pop up. So there were no major impediments. For example, there's no mandated ownership in Cambodia. We own 100% of our licenses. As I mentioned, there's a flat income tax. There's a very reasonable NSR associated to precious metals of 3%. The banking system in place is exceptional. Canada's got a foothold in Cambodia from the banking perspective, so the flow of cash in and out of the country is unfettered. And all the infrastructure that you would need in order to see a nascent mining industry like ours grow are in place. So when we first arrived in Cambodia, it took us better part of 2 days to drive from Phnom Penh up to the properties. Mm-hmm. Now with all of the foreign direct investment that's come in and the new roads and infrastructure that are being built, it takes us no more than 7 hours door to door. And that's in a 10-year window.
Yes.
So you see Cambodia growing at breakneck speeds, average annual GDP growth of around 7%.
That's pretty,
and the foreign,
impressive.
It is,
yeah.
and the foreign direct investment that's flowing into country is second to none. So as far as Southeast Asia is concerned, it's one of the top locations for your neighbors, and your neighbors are Japan, China, and other major forces that are looking for base metal, precious metal, and oil and gas. And I'm quite confident that we're going to find at least Cambodia will have all 3 in place in short order. Hopefully we'll be involved, but we'll see how that goes.
So you touched on the fact that Cambodia has a legacy of being an unstable regime. What gives you confidence now that the way that it is structured at the moment will continue, so that as you invest in this property, you know that you're going to continue to operate in a stable environment?
Well, I would say for the past 30 years it has been quite stable.
Yeah.
And as any young country, I mean, if you look at any country in its 30th year, essentially, there's always going to be bumps and turns, etc., as they grow. I think Cambodia's current political regime is strong. It is stable. I mean, there are lots of pros and cons depending on who you're speaking to, who are going to look at the Cambodian context and have positives and negatives to say. But the Prime Minister is, in our opinion, looking to better the country in general, the economy in general, and it's been a very stable scenario. So from a legislation perspective, the code is strong enough for us to be very confident and comfortable to know that the future is there's a direct line from A to B to C.
Yep. And
I think that when we brought our partner JOGMEC online, the Japanese Oil and Gas Exploration Corporation, so the exploration arm of the Japanese government, I think that really lent credence to that fact. I mean, they're a massive company looking at exploration around the world, and when they started working with us directly in Cambodia, I think that was a vote of confidence for the future.
So for anybody who's listening to you carefully right now, you go, but hang on a second, you said they're an oil and gas company, you're a gold company. What's the relationship there?
They actually do both.
Yeah.
So JOGMEC in our current partnership is specifically focused on base metals. So we work with them on one of our licenses that's called the Oya Dao South license. Copper porphyry units that we're exploring, and in that case it's a $3 million 3-year commitment. We're the operators on that, and they're the funders, and they show up and work with us on site. And our maiden drill hole, a 400-meter drill hole, turned out to be 99 meters from surface at 0.24% copper and 2.26 grams per ton silver. Not bad. We're looking for bigger and better, so we continue working with them on the Oya Dao South project. But they do have an oil and gas arm. We're not connected to that side of JOGMEC at this stage in the game.
But you do have the hint of potential oil in your property, do you not?
Not quite on our property, but in Cambodia, we announced about a month ago that we've put our first application in for an oil block.
Ah, okay.
And we have been working with the government for a few months now in the process of going through application. And now we're looking towards the final negotiations of the PSA on our first block. Cambodia is blessed with great geology, whether it's hard rock or oil and gas potential, and the region at large is as well. In the context of Southeast Asia, you have offshore oil happening in Thailand. You have a massive shale gas reserve in the Korat Basin to the north of Thailand, which is adjacent to Cambodia. And then over to the east, you've got the Kulong Basin, which is another offshore oil basin in Vietnam. So all of these scenarios lend themselves to why would there not be potential oil and gas opportunities in Cambodia proper? The same thing holds true on the hard rock side. You have significant gold, copper operations all around Cambodia, yet you don't have anything in country. So as we all know, geology knows no borders.
Right.
There's no reason why we wouldn't see continuation of some of these trends into Cambodia. We believe that the Northeast Quadrant is great for hard rock, and we're looking at the various extension basins that follow down from the Korat Basin down into Cambodia for the potential of oil and gas. Now you're looking at a country of 15 million people. They need everything. They import a significant amount of everything that they use day in, day out. So the idea of gas or oil production in country is top of mind, obviously, for the Cambodian government. And in fact, this summer, a company out of Singapore called Chris Energy will be bringing a platform online for the very first offshore operations in Cambodia. And then onshore, they're building a $1.6 billion refinery to support that. So we're seeing bits and pieces of that infrastructure coming online. And as an Angkor management team, we actually all have significant oil and gas experience behind us as well. So we've been looking at this for 5, almost 6 years, and waiting for the right opportunity, and we think the opportunity is now.
So you think that you're strategically positioned to be able to capitalize on a variety of different opportunities, partly because you understand the landscape that you're operating in, the great geology, and the experience of your team. Let's talk a little bit more about your team. Who makes
Sure.
up your team?
So I've been working in the natural resource sector now for about close to 15 years, and most of my time was spent in the African context, but working on a variety of resource plays, from agriculture, hard rock, through to offshore oil and gas. Our president, JP Dow, lives in Cambodia, has lived there for 12 years. JP has been working in the natural resource sector for, I think, close to 15 years as well now. He has quite a bit of deal experience, and of course his knowledge and expertise on the government relations perspective is second to none. He's our eyes and ears on the ground, and we're very fortunate to have JP at the helm in country. Mike Weeks is one of the founders of the company. He's our executive chairman. Mike was the eyes and ears and heart behind the company since day one, has been since day one.
Yeah.
In 2007, he was the one who went to check on these assets as a private company and fell in love with the country. And he and his wife have been spending quite a bit of time over the years in country, working with our local staff, working on social development programs, and of course guiding this company through the highs and lows. I mean, we've all been affected by the markets over the years. So,
haven't we all?
Exactly. So I would just add one more point is we take great pride in the fact that we hire local. We have at any given time anywhere between 20 and 40 Khmer staff on hand, and outside of our VP of X's on both sides, who I'll also mention. We've tried to hire as much local staff as we possibly can, and in fact, because of our training programs, quite a few of our staff end up working in higher level government roles because we work very closely with the Ministry of Energy and Mines. We've been there to help them through these new machinations on the guideline side, on the adoption of new protocols. So it's something that we're very proud of. But the two sides of our business, now that we have oil and gas, we'll have one line that will be run on the oil and gas front by Lauren Rosenthal, and then on the hard rock side is Dennis Huet, and those are our two VPs of X, both with exceptional resumes on their respective sides of the geology.
So what did the next few months look like for the company? Where are you going next?
Obviously, with this announcement around oil and gas, there's a major focus of that. As I mentioned earlier, we have 4 partners in place. So all of our hard rock assets, with the exception of one license, are funded. So we have programs ongoing with JOGMEC. We have programs ongoing with a group called Hommy 5 Resources out of Canada, and an Australian group called Emerald Resources.
And they're still at the exploratory stage.
These are at the exploratory stages. So these are assets that are being moved towards eventually, hopefully, identifying resources.
Right.
But there's drill programs ongoing in all 3, and our rainy season doesn't start until late June. So we've got quite a bit of work to do between now and then. On the hard rock side.
Yes.
Now on the oil and gas front, what we are going to be doing is finalizing negotiations with the PSA, with the government, acquiring our first oil block, and moving forward with seismic and looking at target identification, and of course fundraising that will follow in relation to the oil and gas story.
Right, and I guess it's important to say, yes, you're in Cambodia. You talk about the need within the country to supply its own resources, and so there is an appetite to, of course, help enrich the economy with that. But you are now in the part of the world that is the most populous, with economies just taking off, and in desperate need for all of the materials that you're seeking out. And so it must be quite an exciting time there.
It certainly is, and I think the government appreciates our being a big player there.
Yeah.
And working in a country like Cambodia, which is a developing country, we're afforded access in places that otherwise may not be as easily accessed. And as a result, we are there to do the right thing. We do exactly what we say we're going to do from the outset. And the government has always appreciated that about Angkor. We've committed to working with communities at the base, at the lowest levels, at the most local levels, And as a result, our ability to access rural areas is second to none, all the way up to asking for opportunities to speak with government when necessary. We are often referred to as the gold standard, and that's a nice place to be. Whether the Prime Minister is referring to the textile industries or to the agriculture industries, he will often say, be more like Angkor Gold. And that's a pretty special place to be.
Well, it truly is, because if we take a look at trends in corporate cultures, there is this sense that, yes, we're there to make money, but we're also there to do good, to bring value to the community and to raise the standard in everything that we do. And it sounds like you're doing a great job there, especially when the president's suggesting be more like Angkor Gold.
We're trying our hardest. We're trying our hardest. And obviously we're also trying to grow shareholder value along the way.
Of course.
And there's a balance that needs to be struck. But I think that the time was right for us to throw our hat in the proverbial ring on the oil and gas side of things as the infrastructure is coming in, because I really do want to show our loyal shareholders who have been with us since the beginning, in many cases, they deserve a win, and we're going to do everything we can to try and give them that win.
Well, it sounds like a fascinating opportunity. I wish you all of the greatest success.
I appreciate it.
It'll be a few years before we see it play itself out completely, but
of course.
It looks like there's a lot of promise there.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming in and sharing.
Appreciate the time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.